Recording. All right. So Dov is going to start us off tonight.
All right. Thank you all for being here, for joining in. It's another Join Us for Present Happiness. And we have found that present happiness is right now, not later, right now. And in truth is only now. I had, like I said, last week, somehow Holy Spirit kind of sends me some stuff for our Tuesday night meeting. This came to me kind of on Sunday morning. So that's, I shared a little on Sunday. I shared a little today in the room at ACIM Gather. And it's really what I asked Florence, and maybe she's interested in writing a book about it. It came to me that everyone here wants to be the hero of their dream. In fact, as you know, in chapter 27, it's called The Hero of the Dream. That's the section where it says, into eternity crept a tiny mad idea. And the Son of God remembered not to laugh. He took it seriously. He said, I can do this. I can be the hero of this world. It's my world. I'll make it up and I'll be the savior. I'll save the world. I'll do everything there is to do with the world. Of course, we now know there is no world. She tells you in lesson 132. But that doesn't keep us from helping people, from fixing people, from judging people. And in the course, Jesus actually says, listen, I don't call for martyrs. I call for teachers. Now, Jesus' idea of teaching, it says to teach is to demonstrate, And he said, the only thing you're asked to demonstrate, he tells you this in Rewards of God, chapter 6, section 4. He says, your only mission in this crazy mixed up world is to demonstrate that you're not an ego. Now, if you don't see that line and you think that you're here to fix people or to help people, to serve people, or to give people, there's always you and somebody else out there. You're definitely the hero of the dream. Now, to be the hero of the dream means I'm a savior, but the flip side of the coin of being a savior is you're also a martyr. He says, I don't want you to be a martyr. I don't even want you to be a savior. He says, teach. Not that I came to be crucified, to die for your sins. Teach rather that I did not die at all. I came for the resurrection to teach that there is no world. And then he goes on to say, and if I am awake now and I live in you, you are awake too. And all you have to do is see your brother doesn't need your saving. If you think your brother needs saving, you still think that you're the hero of the dream, or maybe you didn't do a good job and it got all messed up and now you're the martyr. I did everything possible. I tried to save the dolphins, the whales. I want to do something. He says, you don't have to do anything. Remember, I need do nothing will save you a century of doing anything. So we really come here to say, the only way you can be the hero is the dream is to recognize that you're the dreamer of the dream. And that's really what the miracle is all about. The miracle is recognizing that you're the cause and you are restoring yourself to source. Now, the word source, sometimes you mean God, sometimes you mean, well, I don't know what it means, but source is cause. If I see anything going on out in the world as cause, I'm at the effect. And he says, beware now, beware the temptation to perceive yourself unfairly treated at effect because you're going to be a martyr. I mean, if I tell you that there is no world, who do you think you're saving? There's no one out there. Remember, you never left heaven. Heaven is awareness of perfect oneness. So to actually be a demonstration of being the son of God and not an ego, the only thing we're asked to do is to forgive. And forgiveness is just another way of saying that everything I believe to be true is not true. Quantum forgiveness says I don't have to go and forgive each and every person. Those people who were with us on Monday night when Amy Anderson ran the thing on forgiveness on Ho'oponopono. No, the quantum forgiveness doesn't mean you have to go to each person and say, you know something, I was completely mistaken about you. No, I was completely mistaken about the entire world. I was mistaken. Father, I am mistaken. Please forgive me. I knew not what I was doing. I love you. Thank you. And that's what I really came to share with this Tuesday evening. Are there any thoughts on that?
You said so much, Dov. So people are probably just resonating with all. I took notes because there's so much that I want to say. But if there was just a sentence, because it adds up to be, it could be a complete book, what he just said. If you had a reaction to any one part or a question, like, what does that actually mean when I see a world and the world doesn't exist? Questions like that are, you can bring up anything here. Lynn.
Yes, Lynn. Hi, Diane.
Hi. Good to see you.
Gosh.
Yes.
We can't hear you, Lynn. You're
Lynn,
muted, honey.
no mic.
Excuse me. I had a lucid dream for the first time ever. When I was about 8, 9 years old, I used to have night terrors. I used to walk in my sleep. I was a mess. And I went out to see my aunt and I woke up screaming. And she gave me a prayer book. And since I said that prayer, the night terrors stopped. That was the first miracle I've received. Now, I've been having nightmares. A few weeks ago, the nightmares were coming, and like my my friend who left his body. In my nightmares, he wasn't around anywhere. In my waking state, he's always around. So it was a nightmare. So I prayed again. I prayed for the nightmares to stop. And in my dream, it was like I was starting on a nightmare. And someone said to me, that's a nightmare. You don't want that. Is this a lucid dream? And I was so thrilled. And that can be that's so easily brought into, waking dream, where, looking at, you don't want that nightmare. My brother choose again. I feel so blessed. I'm so excited. My first lucid dream.
Well, you blessed us with that. Thank you. And it is that simple. It really is that simple of owning what we know with a capital K, not our senses, what we see and what we feel and what we think, but this knowing sense that when we go to oneness or we go to a lucid dream and we see just not that, no, that's suffering. That right there is suffering. No, thank you. Yeah. It's that simple. I mean, it really is that simple. When I could be tempted to go to nostalgia about my daughter who passed. I could go pick up some pictures. I was cleaning out my computer, and there was a part of me that would have kind of enjoyed that journey. But right away, there's a message that will end in suffering. Put your hand in the fire or not, suffering or not. I love what you taught us there, Lynn. Really beautiful.
That's very good, Rosalyn. I can put my hand in the fire or not. Yes, Rafi, go ahead.
Well, there is this aspect about giving, the impulse to give, the impulse to give. If you have two items in line in the checkout, and there's a lady behind you who has 15, get out of the way and let her go through, because that kind of stuff. And the aspect of giving and receiving are the same thing. The impulse to be giving and compassionate and loving and kindness, and to act out that stuff. There's a fine line between that and martyrdom, and sometimes it's difficult to see where one ends and the other begins. And I have been working through that lately, because one of the aspects that keeps coming up is putting the needs of others first, which again suggests to me that I'm not even here. But if there's an aspect, I hadn't considered the aspect of martyrdom until you just mentioned it. And now I have to go back and reevaluate and see if that's exactly what I'm doing, or if I'm just being kind.
I'm the same way, Rafi. I put the needs of others first. I really do. I think we're all familiar with David Hoffmeister. He has two, I guess you call it two principles. One is no people pleasing, don't please others, and the other is no private thoughts. And they're very adamant on that. You cannot be in that community and do people pleasing. As a matter of fact, I was going to say, if you want to, Flo had visited their Utah center, and she had some incredible experiences there. I don't know if you want to share anything.
Oh boy.
But people pleasing, first of all, comes from the idea that there's someone outside of you that needs help. If you look at Awakening to Your Redemption, chapter 11, section 6, you get, that's the place where he says, teach not that I died in vain, rather teach that I did not die at all, by demonstrating that I live in you. And if I live in you, you are awake now. I never went anywhere, and you're going nowhere. We're all here together. And then he says in paragraph 10, he says, God's son does not need saving. You don't have to do something for God's son. That's the idea that you think that you're doing something for someone who needs something to be done. That's false identity. That's saying the God's son is lacking something, he needs something, and I'm going to help him. I'm talking about the way that I do things in this world, and you Rafi, may kind of resonate with what I'm saying. But basically, if you think the God's son needs saving, you're talking about yourself. I need saving, but I'll save him first. Kind of like on the Titanic. Men stand aside, women and children first, and of course, a lot of men dressed up as women. Are there any thoughts on that?
It's a lot clearer now. Thank you. Yeah. Lester Levinson used to say, allow everyone their own beingness. Let them be who they think they are, because that's what they're supposed to be. And just allow them to be the way they are. But again, the impulse to be helpful is there, and if it comes from a place of, since they are a mirror to me, if I'm helping them, then I think I need help. Then that's a whole other situation.
Yeah, actually, you brought up a good point, Rafi. If I can help them, then I know that someone's around to help me too, because I need a lot of help. But okay, I'll help them first. I see Franca had her hand up for a second. Franca, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you. This is very timely for me. If you fall into the rabbit hole of feeling that you should help and feeling guilty because you're not doing something perhaps that others want you to do, I can see where it's easy to forget what you are. And I just experienced that, where I felt someone really needed me to go somewhere and I did not want to go. You know, it was part of a mini holiday. I didn't want to participate. So yesterday I was in a spin cycle of guilt. And it took me a little while to stand back and remember that I had to honor myself and my wishes, and also that this person didn't need rescuing, even though appearances may have looked different. So anyway, it's just, I know sometimes when I talk about these things, they just flow so easily, and you know, life seems somewhat easy, and then I'm hit with a situation and for momentarily I seem to forget, you know, and I can get caught in that. And yesterday, that's what happened to me. So
Thank you, Frank. I would really like to respond to that feeling that you're conveying. I really didn't want to go. And I'm not emphasizing the I, I'm emphasizing the feeling. There was a very strong movement in you not to go. Now, you later on interpreted that as I should have, or I didn't help, or I feel guilty. But we can stay with, that was your secondary mind. Mind has full of junk. We don't need to follow what your mind said. What if you were being moved not to help this person? I think following the movement can be following intuition. That's the way I live my life, but I don't see it as the I. I say, what is the movement here? What is happening? Now, I think we can also tell, it's not that I don't ever have a small self that appears that I can see, like, is withholding. Let's put it that way. Maybe you felt it was withholding. The way you described it, it sounded like you were being stopped. It was even your opinion you should go, but you were being stopped. Can you respond?
I didn't really want to go from the moment this was mentioned, this little girl's getaway, because it's not something I take pleasure in. And yet I could feel the pressure for my participation, because one of the ladies really felt she needed to get away. So there was that dynamic going on. And I'm not proud to admit that I went into judgment. Like Rosalyn, as you say, you add paragraphs. If I had just stayed with that strong feeling or movement about not wanting to go, but I did dip. I did dip and you know, and start judging the situation and almost resenting that I was feeling pressure to go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. And yes, we can ruin anything with this, the mind chattering. Acceptance comes at that first level. You know, I go or I don't go. And then the paragraphs create the suffering. I wanted to say one more thing about helping. I think when we have been helpers in our history, and we're wanting to take a good look at it like we're doing now, it's been very helpful to experiment with not helping and see if anxiety comes up, or to say to yourself, what would I be wanting back if I did this? Would I be wanting thanks? Would I be wanting them to someday help me back? Would I be getting credits? Just not to do it, but just to have an inquiry. That way it's not compulsive helping. That's the only thing I'm addressing, is if we're questioning compulsive helping.
Do you know what, Rosalind? Until you said that, I had forgotten my Enneagram. That might not mean a lot to a lot of other people, but I'm a 1, and right beside me is a 2. And I didn't think about that until you mentioned that. So thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, my wing is 2.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Thank you.
And it's very important to go against the compulsion to see what's underneath, you know. Otherwise, we don't see. But anybody else want to respond to this or Dov's wonderful talk that he gave? Rika.
Good evening, family and friends. Thank you for your welcome. I send you love and life from my heart to yours. Thank you for allowing me to be here in your presence. I just want to say thank you, Franca, for sharing that story. I loved it and your comments, Roslyn. And I just want to share briefly a sidebar that in the 12-step program, we have these coins for anniversaries, little milestones we take. And on the back of the coin, it says, "To thine old self be true." And when you were telling that story, that's exactly what I was thinking about. Your initial response was about to thine old self, spirit. But your mind started saying, well, start entertaining the idea that I should go because guilt starts settling in, which means, well, I probably should go. No, your true self spoke very loudly, or at least I heard it very loudly. And I thought about that coin, to thine old self be true, one of our mottos. So thank you for being true to yourself. I need to see more of that. Thank you. Not from you, but I mean from life. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Rico. Thanks.
Well, this is a perfect segue to a continuation of a conversation about, last time we were saying, I am that as a phrase, you know, we're one with everything, even the person who annoys us. We were talking about that. I was making a list with some people this week of how else we could call ourselves the I to wake up from the dream. So I awareness is one good way. I don't know if we've talked about that, but Rupert Spira, when he says I, he means I awareness, not I, the personal self. And what does that mean? I mean, what would be the difference? Is this just semantics? Are we just playing games? I think actually it's everything. It could be a complete awakening to go to, what if we are I, the host? What would that mean? What if I am the host of the oneness? I am the manifestation of the one being, and you are another manifestation of the one being. I mean, I was just playing with that word host because it's such a religious word, and it's not one that the Course has really picked up. They picked up all the others, but I was, kind of resonating with that. How about I, the oak tree? I was reading a book and they referred to the grandfather having been the oak tree. I said, well, what's the oak tree? Oh, the oak tree is sturdy and it's solid. And usually when we say solid, we think of the personal self, the opposite. Oh, I think I'm a body. I think I'm made of not of energy, but of material. But it's playing with the word. I'm the oak tree because I am source. I am made of source. Source and I are one. I was just playing with words. I am the knower of my experience, and I am the experiencer. There is no difference. There's no separation. I'm the dreamer. Go ahead, Dov. Go ahead.
I want to say the word source is very much used in the Course of Miracles. It's always about returning to source.
Mhm.
Now, at first I used to think, well, you're talking about returning to God.
Mhm.
And my new mantra is lesson 258. Let me remember my goal is God. But what is God? I always say God is a 3-letter word, and everyone has a different idea of what God is. God is source.
Mhm.
And that oak tree is source.
Mhm.
It's the strength of the timeless, changeless creator of the universe.
Mhm.
And we are returning our mind to the eternal now. That's all we're doing. That is what source is.
Exactly.
Turning our mind to now.
Mhm.
If you say, well, one day after I achieve this and I do this and I finally accomplish this, there's no such thing as achieve or accomplish in a world that doesn't exist. That's just the ego saying, well, one day I'll be okay.
Well, it exists as much as our nighttime dreams exist.
Yes.
So I think people have a little trouble because when they hear it doesn't exist, that there is no world, but then they start defending their experience of, I see you, you look separate. So just as a gentler door, I like to say, because we can really understand that our dreams seem really real, and they are, because we created them. It's exactly what the Course is saying, right, Dov?
Yeah. Well, the word exists happens to be one of the few words in the 3 lines in which Jesus says in the introduction, he says, I'll sum up this entire course of 1,300 pages in 3 lines. He's giving you the entire course in 3 lines. He says, what's real is always real. It can't be threatened. It's changeless. What's unreal doesn't even exist. Herein lies peace of God.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The only thing that keeps you out of peace is the belief that you're not enough, that I'm lacking something. Somehow I didn't make the grade. Somehow I missed out. I got to do something. I had to get something. I'm unworthy. All of those is the ego talking to you.
Mm-hmm. And so you started out saying that all we're asked is to demonstrate that we are not the ego.
That's right. That's what he says. It's in chapter 4, section 6, the rewards of God. I think it's in paragraph 6. He says, your only mission in this world is to demonstrate that you're not an ego. Now,
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go.
So I was looking at it today, and the reason we want to help people and all that, we somehow have judged that they need our help, or they're not good enough, or they aren't fixed. And if I could help them, they would be much better off. I'm always talking about myself, but yet I'm judging, and only the ego judges. The ego has never forgiven itself ever. The ego doesn't know what the word forgiveness is. But when you practice quantum forgiveness, you don't see your brother in any other way other than, as you call it, awareness. Perfect, whole, complete, created as we all are, the same, equal.
And so what do we do with that? Is this just talk? Is this just concepts? Or does it mean that one place we have present joy and the other we have suffering? Because if it means that, then it's practical. Then it's not just concepts. So let's take a little journey now, if that's okay with you, Dov. Take a little journey and see in our own direct experience, and call yourself by your own name, your given name, Lynn or Suzanne or Robin, and feel how personal that feels. You're muted. If you're all muted, you can say it out loud and see how personal it is. And your mind will sort things. It will sort what you hear and what you think and what you feel all around that name. If you're in a crowd and you hear your name, you will hear that louder than the other names or the other talking. But does that make it real and true? Do you want to live your life on what might be your collective experience of a hypnotic state? You were taught that you're a separate person. You were taught that you need to improve yourself. You were taught that you and whoever taught you share an insufficiency. We're all truth seekers, and we don't want just concepts. We don't want to just believe. We don't even want to just trust. We want to know. So let's take a deep breath, a very conscious breath. And let's try on a new idea that you are being breathed. You are the recipient of the breathingness, if you will. You are being breathed. You are being held. When the Course talks about it is all written, that means all. So you can relax. Even Franca's saying no and being guilty is part of it all. There are no exceptions. So when Dov says we're not the doer, but doing happens, we're going to be moved. Everyone's going to be moved because there are going to be interactions just like the weather. So let's move out from this breath that we're being breathed. And let's move out into the air where we're being held by the ground, by the air that's around our chair or our couch. And the exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen all just happens. We don't have to be the doer of it, and yet doing happens because we're breathing. There is always 100% trust. It's just a question of what we trust. Are we going to trust what we overlooked and didn't see? And in hypnosis, we can give you a suggestion so that you will focus on objects, on doing, on yourself, your brother. You will focus on these things and not the all and the source that's around you, that's giving you intuition, that's sending you here, that's sending you there. If it's all planned, not for a personal you, but for all the yous, because this is a dance. And if there is no personal you, we might at first contract because we're trying to be, as Dov said, the hero of our dream, or the worst of the worst of the not good enoughs. Sometimes we like that too. Oh, you don't know how awful I am. But if we're not trying to be someone, and our efforts might have felt like they were in vain, we could actually relax into this moment that all is being taken care of. It always was, and it always will be, if we allow what is without a personal opinion. If we're truthful, our opinions conflict. We want this, we don't want that. Sometimes we want this, sometimes we want that. We don't want this. We can't trust that. But this place that's always the same, every time we return, it's a neutral space. We can pop out into the air outside and welcome whatever weather is holding us. Everyone is always allowed and accepted equally. Dov's favorite word, equally. Well, one of his favorite. And we can enjoy each other as the roots of an oak tree cannot be told which is the oldest, which is the youngest, because they all combine. And if we don't think in agreement, it's still the truth that they are in agreement, that they are intertwined. Truth does not need our personal opinion. Truth is always true. And go to your direct experience. Is it always neutral for you? Neutral in the sense of full, without suffering, without opinions, without attack thoughts, without judgments. You are whole. Nothing needs healing because it's all part of play. The source can manifest just as we can manifest because we are of the nature of source. We are source. And when you want to come back to this room, your only job is to remember. When you remember this experience of expansion and claim it as your own, then it's your new home. You don't have to make your home into a personal self. There's a lot of relief from responsibility. We're only responsible for the dream. We're not responsible for the world. As this world exists, this is the real world. Forgiveness doesn't need to happen because nobody injured anyone. And it's all part of the play. And we're merely instruments, and that can be enough. So I welcome you to come back and share your experience if you like. Lynn, thank you.
Far out. I remember when I had a shift and I asked him on Monday what I can do. How can I help? And he told me to be the love that I am. So ego was playing with that a whole bunch, like, how do I be the love that I am? What do I do? What do I do? And then I realized that there's total trust. I will step back and let him lead the way. And for a while I was doubting my love. But little by little, I'm undoubting. I do devotional yoga every day. The ego says to me, "You're right, sure. You're spreading the love. You're right, sure." Damn straight I am, It's all the conditioning, all that brainwashing. And I have every reason to be in total trust, without a doubt. I just got to recognize what's not me coming in and be lucid about it. Be lucid in this dream. Thank you so much, Rosalyn.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Dave.
John?
I'd just like to ask you, Rosalyn, about the experience there, because you were asking about the experience of the expansion, and that's really what I really want to be doing, because I'm totally hooked into the hero of the dream and where I want to help, and I'm just so grateful about this, you know, that realizing that I'm the one who needs the help. So so basically what's coming up for me essentially is that like Lynn too, I got my mother was the best martyr in the world. So you know, I come by it honestly, and you know, I want to be responsible and do the same thing, right? It's blah blah blah. But I'm realizing now that for me, and I'd like you to put this in your frame if you would, because for me, I have to have an objective, and on that outcome, on that objective, the opportunities will arise, and from those opportunities will come the perceptions that I follow, and the assumptions, and the beliefs, and everything else. So it's crucial that I be determined what my outcome is. So if I have to get clear on the expansions, what am I going to say? I am this awareness. I'm tired of this ego game. You know, I am this.
You're saying something really important. Without the feeling and the insight and the willingness, these words are nothing. They're just a word game, right? It won't do anything. So what if you, John, could actually let go of your history with your mother and your history of your helping and the martyr? And what if you could actually rest in breathing, rest in that all you really know is that you are alive. You can't tell me anything else that you can show me. You can't show me where John is unless I believe in your physical body, right? You can't bring him out, bring John out, right? Can you show me where John is? No, but you do know for sure, just like I know for sure that I'm alive, right? Is everybody with me? Raise your hand. We each know that we're alive. What is that knowing that knows that we're alive? That knower never changes. It's not a martyr. It has no personality. It has no opinions. It's source. It's not the body. It's not your mind. It's not your doing. It's not your feelings. It's not any of those things that are transient. It's the thing that never changes, and you are that. And when I was coming up with all those names, they were pointers to that of which I'm speaking. You know for sure, right, that you're alive?
Well, I've got a good idea about that, Rosalyn, as compared to being dead.
Well,
I do have activity going on.
yes, we know that for sure. So that existence, life, is something you know for sure. The mind changes, your opinion, your attitudes, your thoughts, they come and go, right? But the fact that you're alive and there's something that feels like you, that has nothing to do with your age, nothing to do with your gender, nothing to do with your height, all those things change. But there's something that has always been John. It's not your personality, because even that changes. What if it's the knower? What if it's this awareness that knows that you're alive? What if that is what you are? Then you'll be used by life to move and feel and do, but it won't be I, the personal John. Does that make any sense?
Pardon?
Does it make any sense what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. I'm trying to absorb it. Rosalind. I'm trying to absorb this, and you know, I just want to say, you know, I want to raise my flag to that idea, but then who's raising the flag?
Well, that's a good question. And that is also awareness. That is not a personal, John. It's the feeling of raising the flag is there's no, in the ultimate, in the oneness, there's no spirit and ego. There's only life. There's only the oneness. It's all part of that larger play. When it's like when you're little, you need to be told certain things that will make you safe. Mommy and daddy won't die, will never leave you. Things that are not necessarily even true. I mean, maybe you had other parents that told you other things that weren't true, but there is a certain time when we come as conditioned selves and we think that we're not enough, that we need these first lessons: choose again, forgive the way Dov is telling us to forgive. But there is something else that's beyond forgiveness, beyond choose again. And that's this oneness of aliveness that we all have, no matter how we look. And you can feel it. I could feel you're feeling it. And then you want to say something else. Your thoughts came in and said, I don't know, I would just be raising the flag because I feel like it, but I don't really know it. That's what we do. We don't claim it. You know something. We're not sure what that is, but you know something. Claim that. Dov.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the part of us that says, I want to absorb something, I want to understand it, is always the ego. Because the ego doesn't accept anything. Acceptance for me is another word for forgiveness. Why the Course is easy for me is I really do accept every word that Jesus says here. And he says that in chapter 22. He says, unless you accept this Course entirely, it's not going to do you any good. It's entirely or not at all. So the word absorb is the idea that the ego says, well, I don't quite understand it yet, but don't worry about it, I'll understand it. Always putting things out into the future. There is no future. That's the timeline of the ego. Ego lives in time. You always want to bring yourself back to the present now. And I told a story once earlier. There's a line in chapter 18, section 6. He says, it's called Beyond the Body. The first line says, there's nothing outside of you. This is what you must ultimately understand. There's nothing outside of you. This is what you must ultimately understand. Now, that's what Jesus said. So I remember reading it about 35 years ago, and I said, well, I guess ultimately I'm going to understand this. But right now, I don't understand it. I was standing at the airport with John Mundy about 4 or 5 years ago, and we were talking about that particular line. And John says to me, do you know what the word ultimately means? In my mind, ultimately meant one day, one day in the future, I'll ultimately, at the end of time, the end of my life, No, he said ultimately means now. The only way you can see that there's nothing outside of you, since your physical eyes, your brain, your ears, and everything about you says there's a lot of people outside of me. I'm looking at this room, there's 12 people there. What do you mean there's nothing else? You must be willing, key word here is willing, a little willingness to accept there's nothing outside of you.
Or everything, you are everything that's outside.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
But that's return to source. Return to source is I am everything, including everyone that doesn't like me and everyone that I don't like and all that stuff out there, which is the ego's garbage. I mean, it's rubbish. And I keep holding on to it like it means something.
John, I feel like your heart is ready. and your mind wants to understand it and have all the dots connected. And we never get the expansion through the small mind. It will never take us there. Remember that word obscure. It's obscured by the things we trust. But there is something that happened in your experience when I talked, when I did the meditation. I was talking to source. You were getting it. Then your mind kicked in and said, I don't know what your mind said, but it said something to question whether you were getting it. Right?
Well, I just wanted to raise the flag, so that means what I'm doing is I'm doing a judgment on what you're saying, and I'm not in it. So I'm meta commenting on what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. I see what you mean by raise the flag. So I misunderstood what you were saying. So what would raising the flag say?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. To be outside, if I could be in that awareness outside of me, and instead of being constricted stories that I'm running with my ego mind, especially around martyrdom and stuff like that, the pain and suffering.
Can you say instead, can you say yes? Because if you were dreaming that dream of all that stuff that you don't want to be thinking and feeling, and you were dreaming it at night, would you get up and say, oh my God, the dreams, why did you dream that? You dreamt it. It happened. It's nothing. It was just what your mind created at night. Why can't this be the same?
I guess it could
For
be.
daydreams.
Well, all I can say is, I'm undoing habits here, and the habit is to go in that room. So I know there's other rooms, and I can choose to go into a different part of the mansion. So I want to thank you and Rosalyn and Dov for amazing lecture today. Amazing. I don't know how you guys knew it was my turn to get all this download. I love. I'm gonna play the replay on this too. That's so beautiful what I heard today.
I wanted to also thank Rosa. I thought what your sharing was so powerful, by the way. And, when you said we all know that we are alive, that we have life, and the ego says, well, yeah, I have life until death. Notice here in the West, we actually think of death as something that's real. I mean, yeah, I'm here until I die, right? In India, they don't use the expression die at all. He dropped his body, or she dropped her body. You're dropping your body. That doesn't mean that you're not here. As Ramana Maharshi said, when he was about to leave, and his students, disciples said, please don't leave us. He said, where would I go? You're in the awareness of the oneness. He tells you what heaven is in the Course of Miracles. He says, heaven is simply an awareness of perfect oneness. And he tells you never left heaven. Now, if you want to meditate on something, meditate on that. I mean, the idea of death is just the play of the mind. And there's one place in the Course, lesson 152, and that's the lesson that says the power of decision is my own. And in the text, it actually says, your last remaining, the power of your decision is your last remaining freedom in this prison world. So he's really talking about lesson 152. The power of decision is my own. And in the very first paragraph, he says, and no one dies without his own consent. Lesson 152, paragraph 1. No one dies. So we're all here in a classroom. I see the world as a classroom. We're all here to learn lessons. When you've learned the lesson that you came here for, you leave. But where are you going? Where are you going? You came to school. You're in a classroom. You're learning lessons. as long as you have more lessons to learn, you're here. And maybe at a certain point, it's time to trade in your old car for a new car, your old clothes for new clothes. So what? You're still learning lessons. That's all that's going on. But as Rosalyn says, you know you're alive. You're always alive. Life is eternal. That's the whole Course of Miracles. Because Jesus said, I didn't come to be crucified on a cross. I didn't come for the crucifixion. I always like to use the word fiction, the crucifixion. I came for the resurrection to show that I am not a body. I can rise above this world.
This is a knock your socks off call, Dov. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
You got to laugh. If you take anything in this world seriously, if you take anything in this world seriously, the ego's got you by the short curlies. Really. I mean, the ego loves to dance you on a string. Well, you better think about this. You better consider this. What about this and what about that? You got to laugh. We're making it all up.
Mhm. Yeah, I urge you, when if your mind struggles with is there a world and so on, try on that idea that we don't judge our nighttime dreams unless we're having too many nightmares, and we want to get some help with that. But otherwise, we just say, oh, I was dreaming. That was a dream. If you feel upset, you say, oh my God, I had a bad dream. I had a nightmare. And then you let it go. You don't judge yourself for that, for having created that. If you'd be willing, just try on the idea that whatever improvements you think you need to make, whatever ways you're judging yourself, that maybe if you lighten up the way Dov is saying, laugh, I'm saying, let's just lighten it and see it as a daytime dream. And then when that pressure is off, that's those attack thoughts, there might be a little more room for joy. Because causeless joy is part of living. It's not like I'm happy I got this, or this made me happy, or it could make me unhappy. Although, words are difficult because they're dualistic, but let's just call it causeless joy that comes from the absence of suffering. Let's just try it out and come back next week and tell us if it just lightened the load a little bit.
I have a quick question on last week. Last week, the topic was how to deal with unconscious people. And I must say that I got a lot out of last week, because I started recognizing that I don't deal with unconscious people very well. And when I went through the week, I actually started becoming very conscious of my own unconsciousness around unconscious people. I was just wondering, does anyone here have any thought or any story that came out of last week?
Lynn.
Impossible to control anyone else. The only one I know, people have changed since I've changed. And there are people who haven't changed since I changed. But in AA, they say we all have our own higher power. We all have our own path. And we're all on course, but in different I forgot the word. In different whatever. We're all on our own path. And I was upset that the group that I facilitate, people were trying to outdo each other with, you think that's bad? Well, and I was, like, this isn't, no, I really don't want to concentrate on this. This isn't what, but, we can't control anybody. We could just give them the love that we are. So be the example. And yeah, so thank you for helping me come to terms with that. Yeah, it really bothered me. Like, I should have done something. I'm the leader of this meeting. I should have, but I just let it be. And it goes from wherever you let it be.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So beautiful. Mhm.
I also want to mention that the hero of the dream is a section of the course, chapter 27. I'm sorry, chapter 27, section 8. It's called the hero of the dream. It's 3 pages long. It's on page 585. And if you don't have the book, you can always go to acim.org and just look up the text, chapter 27, section 8. I think it's well worth reading. It starts off, the body is the central figure in the dreaming of the world. There's no dream without it, nor does it exist without the dream, in which it acts as if it were a person to be seen and to be believed. That first sentence ought to tell you how you can laugh. Page 585 in the middle of the page. Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
See you next time.
Mwah. Love you.
Thank you so much, all.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rosalyn.
Bye.
Good night.
Everybody, a beautiful evening.
Hey, everybody.
Namaste.
Namaste.